Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This will be a mounting session, so there are no decisions here. I've already made up my mind these two are going to be mounted and not potted. These are two from the Schwerter order that came through a while ago via Lynn. This was one of the birthday present orchids that was snuck in the order. Covert operation. Thanks whoever that was. Still haven't admitted to it. Never mind, it's appreciated. Okay. Now this is what a mix. But in it is Cattleya Why Not, which I've actually got, or I've got it as part of a cross. And this is part of a cross, and it's crossed with an SLC Seagull's Raindrop. Well, virtually all of the Sophronitis have been reclassified as Cattleyas, and so have a hell of a lot of the Laelias been reclassified as Cattleyas. So we might well have a Cattleya Seagull's Raindrop in reality. Nonetheless, that's probably the name it was registered under, so that's how it stands. Species that are reclassified will adopt their new name across the board. However, if that's involved in a hybrid that's actually registered, it'll probably keep its old name as part of that registration. So, you following this? Anyway, so that's one. It's a nice little orchid. It's got a strong new growth here that I'm not sure has actually started its new roots. It's got a good root system. It's in bark. So I will only tease out the bark that's prepared to fall off. We're not hacking that root system to pieces. There's no point. If a few bits of bark are left on, fair enough. Now this was one of my choices, and this is an Epicatleya. Epicatleya? So I've just seen an L in there, or is it an I that somebody put a capital by mistake? It's EP, now that could be LC or IC. You can make your own flipping mind up. It's not going to make a lot of difference. It's Volcano Trick, that's the bit I was after. And it's a specific variety, Orange Fire, which does put quite a bit of fire in the colour. It's a nice enough bloom, just as the standard hybrid Volcano Trick. Now this one's in moss. I hope it's only in moss. And it's two plants, because that plant's wobbling too much to be attached, and it has new growths heading away from here, so I suspect we've got two plants in here. I hope it's only in moss and not in that cocoa husk stuff. Very shallow moss, because some of it fell off. So this is what we've got. Very, very compact moss. And I will lose some of these roots, I suspect, if some of them aren't already dead, because this is so tightly packed. This is no way to treat a Cattleya. No way at all. So I'm going to rinse this under the tap to get the worst of this off. But what we have got up in here, in amongst the weeds, are some new root tips. So it is currently producing some new roots. And that's the only reason I'm taking the risk. There's another Cattleya from the Schwerter order that's in moss as well, but there's no sign of any new roots. In fact, the plant looks quite dormant at the moment, so that one's staying as it is, and I just have to go very careful with the watering, obviously. Lower temperatures, so I'm just trying to see, this is actually coming out quite easily, surprisingly, or some of it is. It's just falling off, which is good. But what I'm going to be left with doesn't look too bad. So far so good, as they say. It does have a solid, so I'm going careful with the new roots. There is actually a more solid bit in the middle, which gives me the impression it was potted on. In which case there'll be a load of dead roots in the centre. Not to worry. And then we've got this little piece here, which I believe is a separate plant. Yes, it is. Let's hope we've got some roots on it, and then it can be mounted up with the rest. Minus the weeds, of course. If you plant the weeds, they will grow. Then you'll be forever trying to get them off. Right, well, that's got completely dead root in the middle there. Dead root there. Old dead root there. Dead root there. Not good, is it? But I think if it's putting some moss on the mount where it's going to stay undisturbed, it might pick up. So I don't see any point in doing a separate plant, quite honestly. I didn't quite mean to do that, but nonetheless. So we'll run with that little piece and we'll add it to the big piece, so that it's just an extra lead. You know, this is the latest growth on here. It's got 2 reasonable leaves on it. So we'll let it grow alongside. I don't see any point in doing a separate mount for it. So that's one piece. And that root there is broken. No, it might branch out. Right, what have we got here then? What's left? Hello, pussycat. Oh, hang on. We've got to turn the camera around because somebody said they haven't seen Fluffy Cat for a long time. Does he still exist? Whee. Say hello to everybody. He's been sat out in the sunshine. So yes, he does still exist. You going to say hello? Hey, I'm going to say hello. Come on, look at my shirt. It's been out in the sunshine. Come on then, down you go. Back to work. Right, it's like distraction. He's usually asleep most of the morning. Oops. And most of the afternoon. And most of the evening. And what he gets up to at night, I really don't know. Probably sleeps. They are getting old though. I mean, they are coming up to 16 now, so as cats go, that's getting on a bit. Right, so we will have, once I've washed the rest out under the tap, got these dead bits off, we will have some roots. And some of those are actively growing. Not many, but some. Some's good enough. As long as there are some, it should take on its mount quite quickly. These roots up here are quite new, so they're not too bad. But as I said, that is no way to treat a Cattleya. I mean, this has come from a German nursery. Now, they may well have imported this from the Far East. In fact, I would say they probably have, unless it's one of their own. Oh, that's the last of that lump in the middle just come out. Oh, goody. Oh, no, this is really what's left. Some trimming to do here. Things like that. No point in leaving that on. It'll probably be that these couple of seedling pseudobulbs can be trimmed on the rhizome, and that will take most of these dead roots with it, and that should leave what's mountable, what's left. So in the sink with you. That's the mossy stuff done. That's come out better than I was expecting, quite honestly. There's some reasonable roots there. Some dead ones. You just have to expect that. You know, this, as I said, this is no real way to treat a Cattleya, quite honestly. And we have 2 pieces to mount. So that's the. Well, I called it an Epicattleya, but it could have been an Epilalia Cattleya. But, it's volcano tree. That's the important bit. Right. So now this one is a bark jobby. Many roots have come through the bottom of the pot and probably died. So no point in trying to keep those, and they'll stop it coming out of the pot. Now I'm just hoping that a lot of this bark is just going to fall off, and that's what I'll mount. Depends when it was put in here, how many dead roots there are. Well, honestly, that's not a bad little root system for a small plant. There's some hollows in here, so when this was potted, all the air gaps weren't filled. Now that sounds like a complaint, doesn't it? When in fact that's a bonus, because that probably means some of the older roots didn't die. Yeah, they like air around their roots. You compact them, you're liable to get, the old root system is liable to fail. If you keep plenty of air around it at the time you repot or mount, you might be lucky and a lot of the old roots will survive and possibly branch out a bit where they've been disturbed. So that's not bad. I'm going to give it a rinse under the tap. It's got a nice clean base there. There's a couple of tiny little pseudo bulbs, but that little tiny seedling pseudo bulb's got 2 viable leaves on it, so it can stay, you know. It's going to serve a function. Right, so that's got them out. I will have a clear out. I've now got to go and find suitable mounts for these. One obviously is only going to want a small mount. That's not going to get to be a big Cattleya, not with what's in it. The Sophronitis in it will have dwarfed it, and the Cattleya, why not, is not a large plant. So at least 2 of the elements are small plants. So I don't believe it's going to be a big plant. However, it is a young plant. So it's probably 1, maybe 2 years off of blooming, depending on when it puts up its next new growth. Its next new growth might bloom, but I personally doubt it. I suspect it will be the one after that. Providing it gets a good root system going, attaches to the mount well, that should grow on nicely. Right, clear up, get some mounts, get some paraphernalia, and we'll get these strapped up. I'll be back. Right, I'll have a go at trimming these on camera relatively close in, because I don't do it very often. I usually do it off camera. But the chances are, because I'm concentrating on what I'm doing, because I don't want to cut any good roots off, I may wander off camera. But by eye, that's a dead root, back to there. This is just by eye, without feeling at the moment. This is just looking. Yeah. Anywhere where these long, hairy things, they can come off. That one back to there because it's broken. Hairy bit. That's broken halfway along, so take it back. That's completely dead. Can come off. That's dead back to that broken joint. That's dead back to there, as is the one next to it. And quite honestly, I think the easiest thing to do is to take the rhizome back. The trouble is I've got a brand new root there, which I don't want to lose. Can you see it in there? There's a brand new root there, so I'm going to have to go down alongside it initially and then round underneath it to be able to get at the bit I want to cut off. How are we doing here? But most of it, I still want that bit there. Oops, there goes the tip. I thought that was going to happen. Never mind, there are others. Not the end of the world. And I did want those old bits of rhizome off because they were holding a lot of the dead roots. So, dead one, dead one. Dead one back to where it's bent. Dead end. Make it branch, make it branch. If there's a dead end on a root, the end will never grow again. That's dead right back to there. Dead end. Dead end. Will probably do. See, there's a bent one there. The one thing it is reasonably obvious is that this is not a naturally branching root system. Notice nearly all of these roots are singular. They have no branches. Now some Cattleyas are like that. Anyway, we do have some new roots, despite losing the tip of one of them. That's not a bad root system. And our latest growth is here. with a sheath. But I doubt if that sheath will come to anything. Yeah, it might do, but I doubt it. So this went off in that direction and then out sideways. So that can go, because it's got a flat back here, flat back, yeah, it can go on its mount upright, yeah. That doesn't mean to say the next growth won't point out at right angles and hang down, but we'll start it off like that against the mount with the latest growth at the front of the plant, but some of those roots are already pointing backwards and they're very close to the mount, so they will take okay. And these are flexible enough to be tied in, so these will go straight in the new moss. They'll be against the mount, but they won't attach. Old roots, very, so I could see that one waggling and wondered why. It's because it's dead. It's died at the base. Right, so that's that one. Bit of trimming. What else we got? This one. Just one to trim there. That's gone. That end's gone, but it might shoot out. That's gone right back to the base. There's going to be very little left on here. It'll just have to grow on, as they say, which young Cattleyas will often do. I mean, basically its latest growth is here, and that latest growth has not really produced any roots any sense, but there's a dormant eye just there. That'll be the next point of growth, I suspect. So we'll get that on the mount. And then the last one, those two go together, they'll go on the same mount effectively. No point in doing two. This one, you can see the difference between a live root and a dead root there. It's blatantly obvious, but unfortunately they're stuck together. So I've got to go in there to get that one out. Doesn't want to let go. There's still quite a bit of bark stuck on here, which is a bit of a nuisance because it's holding some of the roots. But it's just a matter of looking for wiry bits and looking for that discoloration that you see, that greyish colour. You don't even need to put your fingers on them to squeeze them, they are dead and squishy. So anywhere where you see them, just take it off, and any hairy ones, take them back. It's not absolutely essential to get those hairy ones off, they are already dead, but these, it does pay to take these sort off because they are effectively rotting. So if you leave them on, they're only going to continue to do so. Yeah, all these little thin ones here are not up to much. Say a lot of these are stuck together, so you cut the dead bit off and it won't let go. So it's stuck on, dead end. Wiry bit. It's probably not going to go too much more with this one, I don't think. That'll do. So you've got no brand new growing root tips on this one, but they're not bad roots. So I'm not particularly worried that there's no growing tips, and there's quite a bit of bark stuck on there that's staying there. It is a young plant basically. So right, we'll clear up yet again, and I'll be back with some mounts and some tying stuff, and we'll get them strapped on. Right, let's get these done. I've got a small mount here for the small plant, and under normal circumstances a plant looks best with the tiny little seedling bulbs at the back as though it's grown forward. The problem with that often is that it ends up with the place that the new roots are going to grow a long way away from the mount, and they might not find the mount and attach, and the plant won't grow as well without some attached roots. However, looking at the profile of this plant, it's incredibly narrow. So although the new roots are going to come out in this area, they're still very close to where they will be on the mount. I'm assuming the new growths are going to go off in that direction, so I'm going to mount this quite far over on the left hand side, leaving it room to move over to the right. Somewhere about there. In fact, yeah, that'll do. You just bend that hook out of the way. That's the trouble when you reuse a mount. The hook on it can often stop you working because it'll make the mount roll from side to side. Right, that'll get a good bit of those onto there. Am I going to tie this, or am I going to wire it? I think I'm going to wire it. It's just easier. Less faff. Now with wire you can basically start by getting a piece to hold the plant in place. Now what I usually do is poke a piece of wire out towards the back that's got enough to be able to wind round and form a loop later, and just bend that round the mount. Yeah? So that can't move now, it can't pull forward. And then I can just put the wire round and also twist it. Now that's got the plant now. The plant's not going to move. Now I can get my moss in place. So we've got some zombie moss, and that's a Cattleya. So I don't want the roots absolutely covered in moss. I'm going to tuck some in the gaps and some on the top. But you'll notice it's not a lot. There's gaps. You can see air through the moss, which is what I want. It's a Cattleya. Under normal circumstances, the other alternative for me with a Cattleya would be a holy clay pot, where there's plenty of air. So that will do with the zombie moss. There's a secondary reason for the zombie moss. It forms a good basis for the live moss to grow on, because if the live moss keeps drying out, it will die, and the zombie moss just keeps it moist that little bit longer, so the live moss gets a chance to take a hold. I'm getting a bit low on this, I keep saying that, don't I? And this stuff I just gently lay over the top basically, and it should grow. And once it gets going, it'll grow off the edges of the zombie moss onto the mount, and over the years it could even take over the whole mount, and you end up with a nice moss coating on your mount, and it doesn't half improve the look of them. They really look natural, as though it's a tree. It works well if you can get it to grow. Right, so we came over here. Now obviously if you're wiring, it's very easy to go quite tight, so go gently. All you're trying to do is hold things in place. You're not trying to hold up a skyscraper or an iron bridge, it's just a few roots and a plant. So don't go mad. And then every now and again just pull back and think, is that secure? And it is. It's not wobbling at all. So that's all it's going to get. 3 turns. It's enough to hold the moss. There's a few dangly roots here. That doesn't matter. They can dangle. A few aerial roots. It's not a problem on a Cattleya. The only problem is that bit of moss didn't get a piece of wire around it. Is it worth going around it just for the moss? Why not? We have plenty. So I'll do another turn, this time round the top of the plant. And the only reason this turn's going on is to hold that piece of moss in place, like so. And then we come round the back, our original end that we pushed round, yeah, and our piece that we've now got. Cut those off. give them a twist and start a twist going, and then cut it off. I'll show you why you cut it off at that point. You cut it off there so that your pliers go over the top, and then you can pull and twist, and as you pull and twist it gets tight. And then once you've done that, you can just bend that tatty end up out of the way, and these loose bits here, just push them into the mount and they will tighten. Also makes it look a bit better. So that's that one done. Oh no, it isn't. Because we need a tag. Now the tag, quite honestly, is easier to just tie on with a bit of fishing line. Trying to faff around getting the wire around it often causes more hassles than it's worth. So just get yourself a small length of fishing line. You can put it on the wire if you like, but what I usually do is just tie it on the wire. Right over left, left over right, and do it again through the hole in the tag. Tuck your tag in if you can, in behind the wire, yeah? Then it won't flap around in the wind, so to speak. It can be a bit of a fiddle because of the unevenness of the mount, but tucked in behind works quite well, and then it won't flap around. And then get your fishing line through your hole, and same again. Basically, just right over left, and pull it wherever it touches. It'll form a knot. You don't have to follow it down with your eyes or anything. Left over right. It's called a reef knot, and it holds very well, even with fishing line, which is really slidey. And then you can trim your ends off wherever we put our scissors. Now I go very careful with my fishing line ends because I've got cats. If this gets on the floor, they will play with it and possibly eat it, and that can cause serious problems in their intestines. So that's that one. We've got our new growth here, plenty of room to move. Roots, some exposed. These old roots won't attach to the bark. The new ones need to grow first. And then we've got some live moss tucked on the top for aesthetic purposes, because it makes it look pretty. So that's that one done. Get the hook back where it goes, somewhere about there. That's one done. Now the awkward one, because it's two, so it's always going to be awkward. Right, we've got our main plant with our growth, plus some new roots starting, and the older roots, many of which have been trimmed, are white. Cattleya roots are not naturally that colour. They're bleached, in effect, by being stuck in sphagnum moss. New roots will have white with a green tip, but they will turn a different colour to that as they age. You only tend to get that colour when you've been buried in moss. So that's going to go. Progress of growth has gone from there to there, so it's now pointing forward. But because it's got a very flat back, the new roots coming out, which will go in all directions, some of them will get to the mount. And we do have some active growing tips to also guide in that direction. So that can go there, like that. Actually, I'll push it over a little bit more so it's got a little bit more room. And then we've got this little piece as well, which may or may not grow. That's got hardly any roots left. But you never know. And where can I put that? In fact, I'm going to try and tuck that in behind the big piece. Sort of like that, and then they'll grow together with any luck. So that will do. I'm going to wire that as well, just because it's easier, and that bit ain't big enough, so I'll have to go to the big coil now. This is where it gets a little more difficult because of the weight of the coil of wire. If you cut your length beforehand, you'll often find that you didn't have enough, and then you've got what do I do now? You've got to start a new piece and it gets complicated. So it's better to leave it on the coil and struggle a bit. Because you've only got to do it once, haven't you? That's the way I look at it. Alright, so again, some zombie moss and a specific bit designed especially for that small piece, because that needs to stay hydrated. It's got hardly any roots. The new roots will find their own way. That'll do. I can see the roots through the gaps, which is what I like to do with Cattleya types. So, itchy eye. Right, now let's find some moss, preferably without too many weeds in it. Weeds on a mount are not too bad because they haven't got into any soil of any description, any media as such. They just pull off. They're really not a big deal. In a pot, they are a nuisance to say the least. But, you know, if you are planting live moss, try to make sure you haven't got weeds and bugs. I mean, I always run on the lines. My live moss in the grow space has had plenty of time to sit. If there were bugs in it, I'd have noticed. Right, I'm going to put an extra little bit over the end, and this really is purely for aesthetic purposes because this has got nothing to do with the roots. It's got to do with that bit of the mount being a bit bare. Right. Now all we've got to do is get it to stay there while the wire wraps around. I'm going to go the other way this time because that's the way I'm pointing. So again, enough sticking round the back to be able to secure. Hold everything with your thumb and bend that piece so that it can't pull back round. Yeah? Now you've got a loose end which can go round one turn. Now hold the plant. That little piece is just going to come off, I can tell. It's going to be a nuisance. But once we get the first piece round, we should be okay. And then we'll go round again, like so. I'm probably going to end up with a twist in my wire, which will be a pain, but just getting the moss in the right place for the last twist down the bottom here, like so. Now how are we doing? I'm going to put a piece, should be able to judge it now, you only need one more turn, so I'll cut it so that I can handle it. But I want another turn over the rhizomes, which means threading, and I'm going to go in through there so that I grab that little plant first and then come over the top of the back end of the big plant, and that will be my last turn. I should hold the little plant in place and the top part of the big plant. Oh. Alright, how are we doing? Where's the end I started with? There should be two ends here, not one. Oh, there it is, under my nose. Right. And then again, you've got a place where you start twisting, like so. Then cut. Come on. There we go. And then we can twist and pull. And as we twist and pull, everything tightens up. The lower coils don't. Remember, this is wire. It's not going to thread through. You're only tightening that last turn here. That's all you can do. Like that. But what you can do, see, we've got quite a loose one here. Put a kink in it. Now it's tight. Same here, we've got a bit of a loose one here. Well, just put a kink in it. Yeah, now it's not loose. Just put a kink in it. Oh. Worrying about the back here. Yeah, plant's nice and tight. The base of the plant is a little bit exposed, but that's where the new roots should be coming out. Our moss is held, and so are our two plants. All good stuff. I'm just going to put a kink in that one too, just to make sure everything's nice and tight around the front. There we go. And of course the tag, the all important tag. While you're worrying about threading, twisting and doing all that, worrying about putting a tag on can be a real distraction. That's why I like to leave it till afterwards and do it with a bit of fishing line, because it just de-worries it basically. It can be quite a faff wiring a plant on, or even tying it on with the fishing line, because we just ain't got enough hands. Because you need two hands to do stuff, that's how our hands work, but you need a third one to hold stuff still while you do it and stop it all falling off. So it can end up being a right pain, and some people really struggle with it. So, you know, do as few things at once as you can. Somewhere about there. You know, all I've got to do is worry about tying the tag on. I'm not worrying about holding the plant or where the moss is or anything. I'm just worried about getting this bit of fishing line to go through that gap. Thank you. Somebody the other day was saying this right over left, left over right doesn't work for them. It can only be because you're not pulling the first bit tight enough. I mean, I've been using that since I was a kid. You know, when other kids at school really annoy you, that's the knot to put round the back of their hands and tie them to the netball post, just as the bell goes, so that everybody runs inside to lessons and there's one one left outside. I wouldn't do anything like that. Of course I wouldn't. It's either that or upside down in the big waste paper bin with your pair of legs kicking out the top. That kid's horrible. Right, there we go, that's the bigger one done. And all the growth should, in theory, head in that direction. If it goes in that direction, it's going to be a pain, but so be it. That's just how life is with Cattleyas. You can never predict exactly which way they're going to head off. So we'll have to wait and see. But that's that one done. Hook already on there. And the other one that we did. So that's 2 new mounts to go in the grow room. And another job done. I really would have liked to do the third Cattleya that came from Schwerter's, but there's no sign of new roots on it whatsoever. It's quite a large plant, and I'm just going to wait and disturb it later, you know, later in its lifespan, when it's perhaps settled in a bit more. That's those 2 done, and yeah, see you next time. Oh, we've got to do a joke, haven't we? Nearly forgot. What shall we have? Let's do the other funeral one. I quite like this idea of you know, walking round to the shops and there's a funeral directors nearby, so you often come across the funeral coming up the road. Old-fashioned one with the big black horses and, you know, guy sat on the top and all the mourners walking behind. Well, this particular one, there was quite a sort of Hell's Angel-ish type guy up the front, walking along, you know, lead mourner and all that like that. And as usual, I like to go and, you know, pass my sympathies on. So I sort of pulled alongside and started walking along with them. Said, was it a friend or, you know, somebody you knew well? And he just looked at me and said, no, it was my wife. And I said, oh, that's very, very sad. What did she die of? And he said, VD. I looked at him puzzled. I said, you can't die from VD. He said, you can if you give it to me. See you next time.